Shift Happens podcast.
Welcome to the Shift Happens podcast, where we explore the latest trends and technologies transforming the future of work. In today's episode, we're joined by Maarten Eekels, the Global Director for Data and AI at Rapid Circle. Maarten discusses the adoption and challenges of Gen AI he's seeing as more organizations look to incorporate the technology into their businesses. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Shift Happens podcast. And today, I'm so excited to have my good friend on the other side of the world, maybe not quite the other side of the world, maybe 7 hours away from me, Maarten. Maarten, how are you?
Good, thanks for having me, Dux. Thanks, yeah. I'm super happy to be here.
Before we jump right into it, I always ask this question to all of our guests to kick it off, of what the soundtrack of Shift is like for them. As we know, we're going through massive transformation, massive changes. So what song resonates with you most as you think about disruption, change, and why did you pick that song?
Yeah, I love that question. For me, that would be Just Can't Get Enough from Depeche Mode. Couple of reasons, I guess. It was transformational for me. And that song was just like iconic in my childhood when I was in my, early teens, I guess, going towards my 20s. It was one of the iconic 80s songs, but also the topic is about urging for things. You just can't get enough, which brings you joy, but which brings you pain as well. And that's, I guess, when shift happens, when we talk about disruption, it's always about we're eager to learn about the joys of the change, but at the same time, we're a little bit reluctant, and we know that might bring pain, and we could feel that as well. And this song is about both sides of the story, I guess.
No, I love it. That song also reminds me of those during that time in a phase of my life. But there's a part there that says we slip and slide, falling in love, something like that, right? So there's that love, hate, joy, sadness, and it's true, especially in this day and age of AI where everybody's excited, but then on the other hand, it's like, oh, it's the end of the world, Skynet's taking over, and where's that medium, right? We can't get enough on both sides.
Yeah. Agreed. That's exactly where we're at, and things are moving faster and faster as well, right? So it's difficult to cope, and maybe scarier for people all the time as well, because they can't catch up with the speed that things are changing.
So since that time in your life in high school, you moved on and progressed in your career. So maybe to kick things off, can you share and tell everyone what you're doing today, who Rapid Circle is, and how you all are helping customers, especially in that part of the world out in Netherlands and Europe?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work for Rapid Circle, which is, I guess, a bit of a smaller system integrator, Microsoft consultancy firm. We're about almost 500 people, 500 colleagues now. We work from the Netherlands to cover Europe, but we also have offices in India and in Australia, a couple of offices in Australia, actually. And we basically implement everything Microsoft Cloud related. And we try to focus on, our slogan is modernize today and maximize tomorrow. That's what we're focusing on. And my role is I'm the global director for data and AI, which means that I try to harmonize our propositions, our solutions that we bring to market across data and AI solutioning and the data and AI space. It's a relatively new role within our organization. Especially in the age of AI, we figured it was worth to have someone coping with what's going on, and as used to be the case always, and rubbish in is rubbish out. That is even maybe more important when it comes to AI. So it made sense to combine data and AI into one market segment. Microsoft does the same, actually. We didn't invent it, but I think it makes sense. So that's what I'm responsible for within Rapid Circle. I'm also a Microsoft MVP, which means that Microsoft likes what I do for the community. and I'm a Microsoft regional director, as you are yourself, Doug. So yeah, that's a bit of a smaller group of people across the world trying to help Microsoft in advising what's going on at their customers and how they can play those tools.
That's great. So maybe if I could jump in, Maarten, it'd be great to hear. Very interesting that you cover, different perspectives of what's happening in the industry, given the roles you just described. It'd be great if maybe we can dive into a little bit more into what exactly is your observation of the generative AI adoption that is happening. There's so much now that is known, right? If you look back 15 months or so, when we saw the first commercial products that were starting to really, change the way people interact with this technology, or even consider what the possibility was. And then you get this sort of excitement, back to your song, right? Can't get enough of, the shiny object, but now that we're seeing more of a, real sort of pragmatic approach to how do you implement or how do you take advantage of this, it would be great for the listeners to hear from you and the three different perspectives that you have in what you see in the Microsoft ecosystem, as well as the work you all are doing at Rapid7.
Yeah. I think generative AI is one of those products where consumers found out about it before businesses did, right? That really helped in the sense that it's a little bit like social media or communities back in the days. And we had various tools from a consumer perspective where we build our communities, and only then organizations start to realize, hey, but maybe we need something in our organization as well, because we want to build communities as well. It might help in sharing knowledge or finding knowledge or covering certain topics within the organization. And I think it's a little bit similar to generative AI, because that has been adopted, well, not necessarily by the people of my age at the beginning, but certainly by people of a younger age. I have two boys, 13 and 15 years old. And they confided me with using ChatGPT before I even realized that thing existed. So yeah, that's I guess how it works. But that helps in adopting it in the workplace as well. On the other hand, I think a lot of organizations are still struggling. What does it actually bring us as an organization? So the consumer side of things, and it's super simple to use. UI is super friendly. It's a text box that you can type in something into. Everybody understands how that works. And it helps me generate things or summarize things. Yeah, from a consumer perspective, that makes sense. But from a business perspective, does it make sense as well? I think it does. I think it certainly does. But I think a lot of organizations are struggling with it. And if it does, which generative AI tool should we use? Where is my data safe? Where, which one is easy to land in my organization? I have a lot of older people working in my organization. So how am I going to work around adoption of this tool? It's costly, maybe, if you want to go for a premium generative AI tool and not for the basic one. So yeah, there's a lot of moving gears, moving parts here. But it's getting there, and I think at least almost any organization is talking about it, and now it's they're experimenting with it. It's happening, and we're not quite there yet, but it's definitely organizations are embracing it.
That's great. Are you at Rapid Circle? Did you all also incubate some of this into the way you all can change the way you're working?
Yes, I think we did, or at least I like to think we did. I guess we were lucky enough to be a part of the early adapter program when Microsoft released Copilot, or even so before they released Copilot to the general audience. And that helped us in getting at least to understand, okay, what does it mean for us? How would this work for us? We also worked with 2 customers who were also running it internally. So it helped us understand what would it be for another organization. I guess Microsoft was quite on the one of the front runners there, right? So in a little bit of an earlier stage, we try to to see, okay, what are the use cases for our organization? And we are still working on that because it's still not super clear, or even if it is to many, it's maybe not yet part of your daily routine, right? So we have it available, and I know I can use it for so many things, but I don't because I forget to use it for so many things. Because it's part of my, I don't know, muscle memory that I need to think of this stuff myself, or I'm so used to thinking of this stuff myself. So we're not there yet in our own organization as well, I guess, but it's being adopted very well. We use it quite well, and we are working on it internally still as well, because we realize we still have worlds to win internally as well.
Yeah, very similar. So Duck Cells, we rolled out a pilot as well here at AvePoint, Maarten, and it's interesting the habit that people have to, think about changing when it comes to, well, I have to approach work differently, right? It's almost like because I have this access to information in a different way that perhaps before, it was a combination of several different stops for me to get the information. You're right. It's just an input. And as, now the question is, can I actually make the query work very, really efficient so that I get back a result set that really changes the way I work and actually influences the way I work so that I could, in essence, create greater output. So super interesting. Did you all start to identify, challenges, whether it be adoption or challenges in the quality of the data as you were either running your own experiments at Rapid Circle or, from the work you've perhaps been doing with customers?
Yeah, I think you just mentioned one, and that's the way we have to find out or figure out what the correct prompt is, right? And so the biggest adoption problem, in my opinion, is that people, when they start using Copilot, so in the beginning we help them, hey, you have to write a proper prompt. You have to work on your prompt to get the best results. And they're like, yeah, you're right. Let me try that. And they're trying to type in their prompt and they get decent results. And then that slips away and they go back to their old ways, which is just typing in 1 or 2 words. And then they're not getting the best results or the results they were looking for. So it's almost as if they think, okay, well, but that's how I used to search. And at the same time, I think that's also one of the reasons why internal search or company search never worked really, really well, because we used it a similar way as we do external search in Google. But there's like 400,000 results there or 4 million results, and there's probably one page and the first 10 results that will resonate with me and that has the info that I'm looking for. But when I search internally, whether that's through search or Copilot, you're searching for this one particular piece of information or this one particular document or this one piece of content. And if you're using Copilot, you have to write the right prompt to get the best results. And I think that's the biggest adoption challenge that we have right now. Of course, that at least I hope this will be temporary, and we will all learn to write great prompts. And everybody who has now prompt engineer in their LinkedIn title, they will soon go away because we all know how to prompt. But that's a big challenge right now as I see it. And on the other hand, at the same time, sometimes I just forget to use it from other people as well. So that's also a challenge. How can we make sure that we embed this in the way we work, that we know when to use it and how to maximize the results from the tool?
Gentlemen, I have 2 thoughts, right? So as you're describing this, Maarten, first, you talk about habit. It reminds me when SharePoint came out. Remember, we tell people, don't send that freaking attachment, but it took forever for people to do it. And so you're right. Now it doesn't matter. Storage is unlimited. Outlook is smarter now because it puts the link, right? So I don't have to think about it. But then to your prompt point, do you think if it's used in a way like Siri, because everybody's used to using Siri, like voice activated, because typing a long prompt is a lot of work. Do you think that would make it better where if it's voice driven?
Yes, to a certain extent it will, because it's much easier to talk a normal prompt, if that's a phrase, if that's something you can say. I don't think so, but to say something in a full sentence than to type it. So definitely there's another challenge there, though, that we are not used to talking to our devices yet. And there's some people that use Siri. Yes, we have maybe Alexa or Google Home, or we have some stuff. But I have some Alexas in my home. When we first got it, I used it to play Spotify music, and I used it to play jokes, to tell me jokes. And that was basically it, or maybe ask for the weather. But that's it. My kids, they're using it much more broadly, and I think they find it easier to talk to devices than we do, because they're used to it. And for me, it's still, I don't know, maybe a little bit awkward, or it feels a little bit strange to talk to my device. I'm starting to use it more and more. Also, when I'm in my car to do record notes, or for dialing people. So it's happening, but it's not super easy or super obvious to that this will take away the prompting issue, but or partly because you still have to refine. Still, people maybe don't use the right prompt in the first time, so you will have to start refining, etc. But yeah, could work. Will definitely help. But yeah, like I said, there's another challenge there: adoption of voice control.
You know what it is too. We're going through a moment where the fabric of communication is really changing. And you just brought up the other dimension, which is the generations that are really different norm in which communication happens. You know, are you comfortable speaking to a device? Does it feel awkward? You're going to see probably on the other side, organizations start to introduce prompt templates to remove that friction. And then somewhere in the middle is the opportunity to actually fundamentally change work. Just think back, both of you think back, right? How did you change your own habits when the mobile, phone came in? And it really just, really happened with the ease of using the operating system that we all found when we first saw, how swiping really was like, wow, I'm not using a mouse, right? Because at one point you're like, I have to use a mouse to interact with this system. So you go now from not using a mouse, you're now swiping. They tried like touching, also gestures, right? You see that. You even see some car manufacturers try gestures in the vehicle to see if that works. And so we're still probably in this experimental phase of, how are we going to be interacting? What's the form factor? Form factors are changing. But I think the opportunity now, and maybe we should talk about that, is the data layer. That now it's really the data layer that's powering all of this. And the data layer is what we're after, right? We're after the data. Like, can I get to the information? Because it makes me more effective. It gives me, access to answers that, don't have to take me 20 minutes or 3 weeks to research. It's really now access to that much, sort of information in real time, so that you can then create bigger output. And I do think for yourself, Maarten, and the work you're doing, and even the work we're doing here on AvePoint, we kind of get to the benefit of seeing all this stuff happening in real time, as we're not only incubating this in our own practices and use, but also helping customers really think about this as they go through the journey. So super interesting for us to be in this industry, going back to like even where we all started, times where SharePoint was really making that first step and changing the habits.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and it started from collaborating, and now it's getting more efficient, or indeed finding the right information faster. I think it also helps on the creativity side, right? So it's where maybe a couple of years ago we were afraid that the generative AI would maybe that people would lose their jobs because of generative AI, and especially on the creative side. I think it's even helping us become more creative, right? So don't take it for granted what it's suggesting for you, but it kickstarts your creativity, helps you thinking. And okay, I need a plan for this and that. Okay, can you help me draft something for me? And it comes up with a draft, and there's 6 bullet points that you thought of yourself, and there's 2 bullet points that, hey, I didn't think of those, and that's actually very useful. So yeah, let me explore that a little bit more and write about that in my final version of the plan as well. And that's where it really helps me as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of some of these use cases, do you have examples that you work with customers on, or that you know of that's really innovative with respect to leveraging AI?
Yeah, I think it's and I guess you mean generative AI in this case, right? So on the generative AI side, I think a couple of things that we've seen. For example, there was an online conference not too long ago in the Netherlands, a Dutch conference about AI and about the disruption of AI, and a lot of speakers from various organizations speaking at that online conference. And we built an avatar that was actually the host of that conference. So the avatar was doing all the introductions of all the sessions, and it was interactive as well. And of course, there was some latency and there were some things, and we explained that it was an avatar and everything. But the use case was super cool and well received as well. That's one of the things that we did. On the other side of the spectrum, we have a lot of healthcare organizations in our customer base, and we see that a lot of these organizations are trying to figure out if generative AI can help them in their primary processes in their business. For example, summarizing reports, conversation reports between a psychiatrist and his or her client, or we have even one customer that is now using generative AI to figure out if it can detect suicide tendencies in reports, which is mind-blowing, right? Because the psychiatrist who talks to that person for half a year, week in, week out, or maybe once every 2 weeks, goes along in that same flow with the actual client and thinks after 6 months, no, that person is doing great, because it's gradually, maybe very gradually be going down. And the psychiatrist doesn't realize that either, because he or she has been with that person for 6 months. But maybe AI can actually detect that in the reports and in the conversations that they're having. So these are, to me, super interesting topics and applications of generative AI, and completely different spectrum, right?
And I think that's where organizations will truly reap the benefits of Gen AI. I mean, don't get me wrong, Copilot's great, summarizing meetings, working on documents in Word, that's great. But when you go to very industry-specific use case, the healthcare example, a psychiatrist won't pick that up in 6 months and analyze and assess. But imagine real time, right? Gen AI, or even an agent just prompting the psychiatrist.
Yeah, there's also a downside on that, right? Because what if the AI is wrong? There's a lot of ethical issues that we're thinking about with these customers as well, and how should we proceed, and to what extent do we trust the AI in its judgment, and etc. So it's but I like the use case very much, and I think we'll get there, and maybe not now, but we'll get there in the very, very near future, that we will be able to build more things that we can actually trust.
Do you think, Maarten, that, because the example you've just provided makes me think of something, which is the software industry, right? If you kind of trace it back and you think about the norms that software introduced inside of the business model, how an organization can move its products quicker to market, or develop its workforce, the skill sets, advancement with technology over the years. It's been great, right? It's been a world where we went. A lot of people talk about moving and becoming more digital, but on the one hand, you could also say, well, the digital journey really began a while back when people moved away from paper into interacting and engaging with the personal computer, and also computers at work. And then we went and we received more power from these servers, right? And it was now applications and client-based applications. And now we're entering, it feels like, this new norm, which is, what is the opportunity I have to actually augment my experience? And that augmentation, as you described, could be in different forms. It's no longer just, an application where I enter data and wait for it to come back and give me some results. Perhaps it's a bit different. And so my question is, in the work that you're doing and your colleagues at at Rapid Circle, are you also seeing that you have to change the way you help these customers see the technology in action, and that there's a lot more prototyping, POCs, versus I'm going to show you what the product does, how the application interface is? And I'm just curious if you see that change already happening.
Yeah, very much so. But I think it starts even one stage earlier, and that is that many organizations are being led by 50-plus-year-old people that don't really realize yet what AI can do for them. So if it already starts, and that's also where the prototyping really helps, or building, starting with an MVP, or let's do a proof of concept where we actually prove that certain technology, AI technology, works for your use case, because it blows their mind, and they're like, okay, wow, I did not realize this, that AI can do this. On the other hand, inspiring them with a lot of I mean, there's a lot of examples out there where AI went wrong, right? So where people try to embrace it, and okay, maybe that was not the best application of AI, or maybe we didn't build in the right guide rails within our AI solution, because this thing went haywire and went into a direction that we didn't want it to go to. So that awareness, creating that awareness at the higher levels of an organization is super important for an organization to be able to adopt AI. For that same reason, the building the POC or the prototype already really helps. And at the same time, AI is not ready to solve every use case yet. So that's another reason why prototyping or building a proof of concept really helps. We are in the same journey. It's also relatively new for us. And yes, we've done many use cases at many customers already, but we are also in the early stage. We don't always realize what AI is capable of, or generative AI is capable of, and what not. So it helps us as well. We can guess maybe a little bit better than most organizations, because yes, we have some more experience, but it really helps to find out together if something works or not. So yes, I see that happening, but like I said, the organization has to be ready for it, and that takes a little bit of effort, or maybe a little bit more effort that as well.
Shift Happens Podcast. Shift Happens Podcast.
That's awesome, Maarten. I mean, we can keep going with this conversation. But before we wrap up, for our listeners, right, as they're thinking about Gen AI, especially for our colleagues and listeners out in your region, what advice do you have on either taking the first steps on how to do this, and if they're already in it, like how can they take it further with utilizing AI to really enhance their organization?
I think don't be afraid to use it is would be my answer to that question. There's still many organizations that are doubting. They've heard of, we just talked about a couple of examples, or not the concrete examples, but I said there's many examples out there where AI went wrong. People have heard of those examples. People are maybe a little bit scared of the Skynet vision that they have. But on the other hand, they just try it, try it out and start using it, and don't be afraid to use it. And also, don't be, I don't know, how should I say that in English? I'm not a native English speaker. Everybody heard that by my accent, but sorry. But it's like sometimes people don't want to let others know that they've actually used AI to get to something. And it's not a bad thing to use AI to get to a certain result. In fact, I think it's stronger. It strengthens you, because it means that you actually used AI to get to a certain result, and you've hopefully fact-checked that and maybe fine-tune it into, or modeled it into something that you really want to use yourself. But it kickstarted your creativity. It helped you get to your result faster. do your job better. So embrace it and be proud of the fact that you use AI instead of be wary about it, that you want to tell to other people, I've got this great result, but I'm a little bit reluctant to hand this over to you because I use AI to build this. And no, it's good. It's perfect to use AI for that.
That's a very, very important point, because you see, that's true no matter where, right? Because there's this stigma that, oh, Maarten used AI, so he didn't do any thinking or he didn't do the job. But that's a wrong impression, because it's called Copilot, right? It's not Autopilot. There's an expectation that it's a first draft, it kickstarts your thinking, and then you make it better. So definitely, I fully agree on that.
It's like that augmentation piece, right? That's what it is. It's augmenting your ability.
Well, Maarten, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for your insights, and looking forward to have you back in the future.
Very welcome. Thanks for having me. And I look forward to that as well.
Thank you, Maarten. Be well.
Shift Happens Podcast.
Thanks for listening. We learned while Gen AI presents exciting opportunities, it also comes with its own set of challenges and ethical considerations. Maarten's examples of how they're using Gen AI, from being part of the early adopter program for Microsoft 365 Copilot to building an AI-hosted online conference, has given us a lot to think about. If you like today's episode, subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcast. Until the next time.